Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this council meeting of the 15th of August 2023, which is obviously being held in person in the council chamber, Ferris Boulevard, South Morang, and is also being live streamed. I'm Lydia Wilson, Chair of Council, and I'd also like to introduce my panel colleagues, administrators Peter Duncan.
Good evening, everyone.
And Christian Zara.
Good evening, everybody.
And I'd also like to introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Craig Lloyd, and ask that he introduce the members of the Executive Leadership Team in attendance this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Emma Appleton, our new Director of Planning and Development, started today. Welcome. Agata Hamalevsky, our Director of Community Wellbeing. Sarah Renner, Director of Customer and Corporate Services. Debbie Wood, Director of Infrastructure and Environment. Frank Joyce, Executive Manager of Strategy and Insights. Janine Morgan, Executive Manager of Public Affairs. And at the table with us here, Jacinta Stevens, the Executive Manager, Office of Council and CEO. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And can I also, on behalf of administrators, welcome our new Director of Planning and Development and also our Executive Manager, Office of Council and the CEO, who welcome to the City of Whittlesea, but also to your first council meeting. It's lovely to have you along. On behalf of Council, I recognise the rich Aboriginal heritage of this country and acknowledge the Wurundjeri Willem clan and Tongarong people as the traditional owners of lands within the City of Whittlesea, and I'd also like to pay my personal respects to Elders past, present and emerging. And I'd now like to read our diversity and good governance statement. At the City of Whittlesea, we are proud of our diversity and the many cultures, faiths and beliefs that make up our community. We strive to be an inclusive, welcoming city that fosters active participation, well-being and connection to each other and this land. We commit as a council to making informed decisions to benefit the people of the City of Whittlesea now and into the future, to support our community's vision of a place for all. We have a number of acknowledgements this evening, and if I could perhaps start just to acknowledge our aged care employees. On the 7th of August, we celebrated Aged Care Employee Day. And I'm really proud to say at the City of Whittlesea that we have 129 dedicated staff in this area who provide really outstanding care to our older residents. And I'd just like, on behalf of administrators, to take a moment to thank all of these wonderful staff and indeed all those in our community who provide in-home support and care to our older residents and also a number of health and wellbeing programs. Thank you all for making a really positive difference to the lives of our senior residents. I'm also delighted to announce that we'll be very soon opening our new Whittlesea Services Hub, and that's a first for the City of Whittlesea. The new hub will make it easier for residents in our north to access council services, and that new hub will be located at 63 Church Street in Whittlesea. From the 31st of August, residents will be able to drop into the hub and be able to talk to Council's customer service staff from 9:30 a.m. till 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. People will also be able to drop in to talk with specialist council staff throughout the week as well. The Whittlesea Service Hub will be able to take cashless payments and help residents and businesses with a range of different services. I'm really pleased that we'll be having an on-site virtual planning booth and the ability for people to connect with our Engage Whittlesea website to provide feedback on local projects. So really thrilled to be making that announcement this evening. I believe Administrator Zara also has an acknowledgement.
Thank you very much, Administrator. Just fantastic news. If I could add to your remarks about the Whittlesea Service Hub, Chair, that's such wonderful news. Great credit to everybody who's been involved in making that happen. Last week we acknowledged National Homelessness Week, a week that is dedicated to increasing awareness of the challenges faced by those experiencing homelessness. Homelessness is a critical problem across Melbourne, and we're not exempt here in the city of Whittlesea. It's estimated that at any given time there are more than 800 people in our community who are homeless, with many more thousands suffering from housing stress and at risk of becoming homeless. Council has a number of projects underway to help tackle the issue of homelessness at the local level. We're currently seeking expressions of interest from community housing organisations to develop and manage new affordable homes on council-owned land at Ashline Street in Wollert. Council has also partnered with Hope Street Youth and Family Services and the Victorian Government, who are constructing accommodation in South Morang to house people aged between 16 and 25 who need short-term crisis accommodation. I urge anyone who is facing homelessness or is worried about someone else becoming homeless to remember that help is available. We have details on our website of several organisations that can assist with crisis accommodation, including Haven Home Safe, Front Yard Youth Services and the Salvation Army.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Later this month, the City of Whittlesea will host a special event, very special indeed, celebrating the 21st anniversary of the Whittlesea Reconciliation Group. The Whittlesea Reconciliation Group was established in 2002 and has a magnificent and tremendous legacy advocating for reconciliation and self-determination. The Whittlesea Reconciliation Group, commonly known as WRG, all members are volunteers and working in partnership with Council to champion truth, history, justice and education. The elders and allies who have given an enormous amount of their time to the group are rightly proud of their achievements, including the January 26 campaign, establishing the Aboriginal gathering place and the continuing advocacy for Aboriginal people's rights. All past and present WRG members have been invited to the dinner which will be held at PRAC on August the 31st to celebrate their outstanding contribution over 21 years. On behalf of Council, I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all of the group's current and past members for their dedication and devotion, and here's to another 21 strong years. I've got one more, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan.
National Tree Day, we had a cracker here. We recently celebrated National Tree Day and we planted an impressive 1,000 plants over 3 community and school events. More than 120 local school students got involved in schools' Tree Day plantings, and we had a fabulous community planting day at Tambo Conservation Reserve in Whittlesea. More than 250 people from our community, 100 scouts and 10 land care volunteers were on hand to help plant trees and shrubs. The City of Whittlesea staff also participated, which is fantastic, in planting day, where we planted some 70 silver banksias that will serve as a pollinator plant for native wildlife. It's been a wonderful display of the community spirit here in the City of Whittlesea to help keep our city green, and the Council is committed to increasing the number of trees and green cover across the City of Whittlesea, and our goal is to achieve 20% increase in green cover by 2040. So thank you to everybody that participated.
Thank you, Administrator. Some very important acknowledgements this evening. I note that all administrators are present. Administrators and officers, if you have a conflict of interest in any item on the notice paper, you may verbally disclose the type and nature of the interest now, but you must make a declaration immediately before consideration of the matter in question. Are there any items for which you have a conflict of interest to declare?
No, Chair.
Nothing to declare, Chair.
I would like to note in relation to item 2.1 that while not a conflict of interest, I was a former board director of Procurement Australasia and no longer have any association with that organisation. I seek a motion to confirm the minutes of the following preceding meetings. The scheduled meeting of Council held on the 18th of July 2023 and the additional confidential Council meeting held on the 25th of July 2023. Could I have a mover, please?
Happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And a seconder? I'm happy to second the confirmation of the minutes. I'll now put the matter to a vote. All those in favour of confirming the minutes? The motion is carried. If we now move into public question time, Council allows up to 30 minutes for public questions, statements, petitions or joint letters from our community to be read out by myself as the chairperson. Any questions or statements will be responded to by the CEO, and all questions will be responded to in writing and included in the minutes of the council meeting. We have 3 questions this evening and they're being projected at the moment. The first question is from John Roffey, and his question is, what is the council's position on the installation of wood-burning heaters in high-density residential developments such as lifestyle communities, taking into account that a Whittlesea City Council general municipal law states, quote, a person must not use a wood heater in a manner that causes nuisance to any person. And if I could ask the CEO to respond to Mr Roffey's question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Is Mr Roffey present this evening? No. Okay. So the response is that Council's general municipal law does not prohibit wood heaters. However, it does provide residents an avenue to address wood heaters that are causing a nuisance. The new Community Local Law 2024, which is currently being drafted following extensive community consultation, takes a similar approach, broadening the scope of what nuisance is and includes burning of offending materials and extends to the application of nuisance caused by fireplaces and fire pits. Owners' corporations do have their own additional requirements, so you will need to check with them on the rules that apply to your own lifestyle community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CEO. The second question this evening is from Graham Conway in relation to the voice to Parliament. And again, could I just check if Graham is in the gallery this evening? No. Graham's question is, 38 councils around Australia are actively supporting the voice to Parliament. They are allocating ratepayer funding for this campaign. Is the Whittlesea Council considering following suit? And if yes, why? And again, if I could ask our CEO to respond to Graham's question.
Thank you, Chair. The City of Whittlesea has a long-standing commitment to advancing reconciliation and partnering with local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to support self-determination. Council will be taking a neutral position on the voice to Parliament as guided by a number of local Indigenous groups and reflecting the neutral position of our own Whittlesea Reconciliation Group. We will continue open dialogue with local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, and whilst no funding has been allocated to promote a position, we will continue to support stakeholder organisations to ensure the community is informed about this important national issue and the opportunity that they have to have their say. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. And our third question this evening is from Jacinta Walsh in relation to Whittlesea Township history. And I will now read Jacinta's question, and I understand she's in the gallery this evening. Welcome along, Jacinta. The Whittlesea Township and city's fascinating history that has been ignored for too long. the City of Whittlesea Council has not established a museum to manage the enormous collection insufficiently stored in various locations. Environmental factors are destroying documents and natural disasters threaten the collection. Due to unavailable storage, the Whittlesea Historical Society has declined donated artefacts. Additionally, generations haven't had access to a local historical museum to discover life in the past or to directly reference sources. The Victorian Curriculum website states, quote, "Awareness of history is an essential characteristic of any society and historical knowledge is fundamental to understanding ourselves and others," end of quote. The Council's Whittlesea Township tourism plans require sites to attract visitors. A historical museum and railway museum would be its greatest investments. Accessible most days of the year, they will generate local revenue and interest from the community, tourists, students, historians, artists, researchers, businesses. Note, many regional towns proudly showcase their museums. There's a demand for Whittlesea's historical and arts precinct with state-of-the-art facilities to preserve, protect and promote the city's history, arts, culture and cultural properties. What are the Council's established plans and activities to create a historical and arts precinct in Whittlesea? And again, if I could ask our CEO to respond to Jacinta's question.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jacinta, for the question. Council recognises and values the rich historical significance of areas such as the Whittlesea Township. Whilst there are currently no plans for a museum or a historical and arts precinct in the township, we did recently create a destination plan which has identified some opportunities for Council to continue to support local communities and businesses to grow this area of tourist destination. The plan identifies heritage, arts and culture as one of 4 priority areas and highlights important services and events such as the Whittlesea Courthouse Visitor Information Service, the Whittlesea Agricultural Show and the Whittlesea Country Music Festival. The plan also identifies opportunities for a Mernda to Whittlesea shared pathway, food trails and itineraries and advocacy for major investments. Council has developed a Sites of Significance map and a self-guided tour highlighting historical places and spaces in the municipality. Our recently launched Community Grants Program also provides for community groups to apply for funding to run events and programs highlighting cultural and historic aspects for our community. And our Economic Development team would be happy to chat further with you about these ideas and your ideas after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you again for your question, Jacinta, and if I could encourage you to have that meeting with our Economic Development team. Thank you for attending this evening. We have received no petitions or joint letters this evening, and so we'll move straight into general business and work through the agenda, commencing with item 5.1.1, joint meeting, Cloverton Metropolitan Activity Centre. If I could ask our Executive Manager, Office of Council and the CEO, Jacinta Stevens, to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The purpose of this report is only to seek Council's endorsement for Whittlesea Council to participate in a joint council meeting in accordance with Section 62 of the Local Government Act 2020 with Hume City Council and Mitchell Shire Council on the 3rd of October 2023 here in Whittlesea Council Chamber using the Whittlesea Council governance rules, and the meeting is to be chaired by the Hume City Council Mayor. The purpose of the joint meeting is to discuss the Cloverton Metropolitan Activity Centre, which borders across all 3 councils, and to vote on adopting a high-level vision and key principles for the Cloverton Activity Centre. Additionally, at the October joint council meeting, the councils will seek endorsement of all 3 councils, writing to the Premier and key ministers, seeking a genuine partnership between the 3 councils to coordinate the future of Cloverton and for the area to be recognised for its state significance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta. With the endorsement of my colleagues, I wonder if I could just ask an initial question in relation to this item. And while I understand that the report is really a governance and administrative report making recommendations for a joint council meeting, I still thought nonetheless that it would be very worthwhile to have a broad understanding in relation to the Cloverton Metropolitan Activity Centre, its size and potential scale, and why it's of state significance. And I'm looking at our Manager of Statutory Planning, presuming that he'll be providing the response to that question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, the Metropolitan Activity Centre is the highest order activity centre designated by the state government in Plan Melbourne. They're intended to play a major service delivery role because of their scale of government, health, justice and education services, as well as retail and commercial opportunities, so not just your average local activity centre. So examples across Melbourne of metropolitan activity centres include Box Hill, Dandenong, Footscray, Epping, Frankston and Ringwood, just to give you a sense of the scale. Now, this one here, straddling the three municipalities, its location is the most distant of any other metropolitan activity centre, and the development that's happening around that, if you take account of all the growth, there's 16 precinct structure plans, and the population that will be serviced by its catchment will be up to 360 to 380,000, which is the size of Canberra. So, in that context, you'll be getting basically the capital city of the outer north in its scale, and that's why, in terms of the partnership, it's really a significant scale of centre.
Thank you very much. I think it's just useful to have that background and context further. Administrators, do you have any other questions?
No questions from me, Chair.
No?
Chair.
If there's no further questions, I'm happy to move the officer recommendation for item 5.1.1 with the following words replacing point 4, and I'll read them out. Authorise the CEO to endorse the terms of reference for the joint council meeting on behalf of the council, comma, once circulated between the three councils. And that's really only just picking up on the point that the terms of reference were not circulated separately. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Item 5.2.1, Quarry Hills Parkland Future Directions Plan. And if I could invite our Manager of Sustainable Environment, Amanda Dodd, to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm pleased to introduce Suzanne, who is our Unit Manager for Landscape and Open Space Planning, who'll be presenting the paper on this exciting step in relation to the Quarry Hills Parkland Future Directions Plan. I'll hand over to Susan.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Chair. Before you today is the Quarry Hills Parkland Future Directions Plan. Quarry Hills is one of the defining landscape features of the municipality, contributing strongly to the green wedge character of the Mernda-Wollert Growth Corridor. Planned to grow to 1,000 hectares, Quarry Hills is a unique council-managed and activated conservation parkland for the north of Melbourne. The Future Direction Plan sets the long-term vision for a regional parkland for the people. A vision which will put the parklands on the map, providing guiding principles for all the planning, management, projects and activities that occur within the parkland. Implementing the plan will contribute to open space tourism. It will provide the city with an alternative recreation offer, deliver upon environmental commitments, and will be a place in our city for Wurundjeri Wurrung to return to cultural practices on country. The vision for the Quarry Hills Parkland is a really powerful vision that reflects community feedback. To achieve this vision and deliver the objectives, 4 future direction statements have been developed in line with Whittlesea 2040 community plan, so people, place, economy and the environment. The Future Directions Plan was informed by a cultural values study undertaken by the Wurundjeri Wurrung, and it is a recommendation of this study that the name Quarry Hills Parkland be replaced with a Woi Wurrung language name to help visitors better understand and appreciate Woi Wurrung custodianship. A robust consultation and engagement process has been completed through several stages over a 2-year period. This has included talking to community, stakeholders, groups and committees through pop-ups, mail-outs and workshops and the council website. During the consultation process for the draft Future Directions Plan, we had 1,230 people engaged with the project. Over 220 community members provided direct feedback, of which 84% lived within South Morang, Epping or Mernda, and with a large majority of those residing within 400 metres of the parkland. We hereby seek council endorsement for the Quarry Hill Parkland Future Directions Plan and note the formal naming process of the parkland to a Wurundjeri Wurrung name will commence in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Administrators, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'd like to speak to this, Chair. Thank you.
I just wonder if I could ask a quick question, and that is whether you could confirm the funding provision in Council's capital expenditure program that has been allocated towards implementation of the Future Directions Plan. And I do note that we've got some state government funding already for this program. I'm not sure if it's you, Amanda, or...
Yep. So the plan provides for a number of existing programs that we've got in our forward plan, and that includes the Aboriginal Gathering Place, the Granite Hills Community Park, connecting trails and some of our drainage infrastructure works, as well as some significant improvements to conservation outcomes for the parkland. So wherever possible, the actions have been aligned to existing operational and capital projects, but obviously there is a need for lots more work as more land comes into the parkland, and so we'll be seeking additional funding as those projects come about and as that land gets brought into the parkland. We'll also be seeking support from federal and Commonwealth, federal and state governments to support the delivery of the overall parkland vision.
Thank you, Amanda. Do I then have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.2.1?
I'm happy to move this, Chair, but I'd like to make an amendment to point 2 in the recommendations. And I'd just like it to say, endorse the commencement of the formal naming process for the parklands to commence in early 2024.
To commence. Sorry, to commence in 2024.
In early 2024.
In early 2024.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Do I take it, Administrator Zara, that you wish to second this item?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd be happy to second it.
Administrator Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've had a lot of briefings about this over the time, and it's just so fantastic now to see this is coming to life. And obviously this is the location of the Aboriginal Gathering Place, but this parcel of land is more than that, and it is inclusive for everybody. And I think it's a testament to officers at Council that we've got to this place today. and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it is developed over the time and the years, and particularly it's just a magnificent view from up in Quarry Hills. If people haven't been there, they need to go and have a look, but I think we should be very proud of this plan because it is actually going to deliver for the whole community. So well done to everybody.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
Thank you, Chair. It's a real pleasure to support this and acknowledge all of the hard work of our team who've been involved over a very long period of time in getting to this point today, which is a great point to reflect on all of that work and, importantly, all of the participation that the community have been engaged in contributing to this fantastic future directions plan that we're going to endorse today. Chair, I love the way our team described it as a regional parkland for the people. What a fantastic choice of words. And I think one thing that is always incumbent upon us in these types of public official roles is always to understand the needs of the people that we're here to serve. And this is really a document that expresses, I think, the best of that, because people need recreation. We're not all just machines working and then going home and sleeping and doing it all over. People need recreation to have quality of life, and we all know of the challenges of urbanisation and losing areas where people used to recall having farmers' fields and all the rest of it as places that they'd muck around as kids, and that's all gone to development. Well, this preserves a large chunk of Melbourne's north as you say, a regional parkland for the people, and it preserves a part of that quality of life that people in this region are so concerned about losing and don't want to lose. They want to continue to have this great quality of life. So just through you, Chair, if I could express our thanks collectively to our team for the power of work that they've done, but also sincerely to all of our active local citizens who, in very large number, my goodness, more than 1,000 contributions to this public participation process have made this document what it is today. So well done to all involved.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I just wanted to make a couple of comments which really echo the comments that my colleagues have made. Administrator Zara picked out that point about it being a regional park for the people. I also picked up on the point that it would become a place for exploration, reconciliation, healing, learning and play for our community and also for visitors. It was made very clear to us in the introduction that this is really moving potentially from 400 hectares to 1,100, so it's such an incredibly important area of public open space. And then I just wanted to echo the comments of acknowledgement to the many people who have contributed to the consultation process. That's just been enormous community comment, and the bulk of it from residents within our municipality. And to thank our partners, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation, the community and, as my colleagues have said, our staff for the enormous amount of work to get to this point, and I really look forward to its implementation. Thank you. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thanks again. So we move from Quarry Hills to item 5.5.1, road maintenance and associated services, NCA collaboration. And again, Amanda, I invite you to provide a brief introduction to this item.
Thank you. I'm pleased to introduce Samuel, who is Council's Coordinator of Civil Infrastructure Renewal, and he'll be presenting the paper on our proposed contract for the construction of road maintenance and associated service, which is a collaborative procurement that we've done in conjunction with the Northern Councils Alliance. So thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Amanda. So this contract is a result of a recent extensive tender process that was done in collaboration with the Northern Council Alliance. The Northern Council Alliance, or the NCA, is made up of Banyule City Council, Darebin, Hume, Mitchell, Marybeck, Nillumbik and the City of Whittlesea. Procurement Australia, acting as the agent on behalf of the NCA, sought tender submissions for 11 categories of road maintenance and associated services. The tender process allowed for individual councils to opt into each individual category as their needs required. For the City of Whittlesea, it is recommended to proceed with selecting tenders for the following 7 categories: asphalt supply ex-bin, spray sealing, crack sealing, plant and labour, traffic control, pavement and line marking, and unsealed road maintenance. As the selected services are predominantly reactive maintenance works, this contract will be funded out of the existing operational budget. Office's recommendation is to accept the submissions as per the council report, the tender submissions.
Thank you. Any questions, administrators?
No questions from me, Chair.
I have no questions either. Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.5.1?
Happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I'm happy to second the officer recommendation. Administrator Zara, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Chair. Briefly, I thank our team for their hard work. We've been briefed comprehensively on this, Chair, as you know. Our team have, I think, followed a highly collaborative process with our colleagues in neighbouring municipalities and I think delivered real value. There's been a high level of awareness of the need throughout to maintain very high levels of probity throughout, and we really applaud the professional way in which our team have done that. Our instinct to collaborate, I think, amongst the group of Northern Councils is to be commended and really something that can deliver real value to ratepayers and local citizens that we're all here to serve. So really, through you, Chair, just thank our team. Thank all of those who participate in a somewhat complex process, isn't it, these types of tenders, for their goodwill, and I think we've got a good outcome for the people.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And I would just simply echo the comment that joint procurement, collaborative procurement and collaboration in general across services that are relevant is such an important thing and has a great deal of potential to deliver cost efficiencies in all sorts of ways, not just in terms of the actual costs of the contracted item, but also just in relation to the documentation side of things and the actual tendering process. So I also applaud the joint procurement and collaborative approach. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.5.2, Public Transparency Policy. And again, if I could invite Jacinta Stevens, Executive Manager, to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's adoption of the revised Public Transparency Policy. I'd just like to note that since the release of this council meeting agenda, I was made aware the policy was out for community feedback between the 9th and the 30th of June, at which time 3 members of the public were in support of the policy and no comments were made. In saying that, the policy being presented this evening has been further updated since being out on public exhibition. The key amendments were to strengthen Council's commitment to the proactive and informal release of information to minimise freedom of information requests, including an explanation of what public transparency is and what the public transparency principles are as defined under the Local Government Act. Another inclusion to the policy was the public interest test, which explains how Council will apply it when assessing whether to make certain information publicly available. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jacinta. Administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item?
No questions.
I've just got one question, and that is that I note in the officer report that the policy, once adopted, would be circulated to all staff, which is obviously critical. Will there be dedicated staff training in this area?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Once it's formally adopted by Council, hopefully in September, we will circulate the policy to all staff and we will offer training as it applies to releasing public documents or documents publicly.
Excellent, thank you. Do I then have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.5.2?
Not for the officer's recommendation, but I will move a motion in relation to this item through you, Chair.
Please go ahead, Administrator Zara.
Thank you, Chair. That Council 1 endorse the revised public transparency policy attached at attachment 1. 2.
We might just wait a minute. The draft public transparency
Yep. Thank you, Chair.
policy attached at attachment 1.
2.
Maybe, sorry, if I think you didn't have the revised draft, did you? Or did you just have the draft? Public
revised.
transparency? Okay,
Yep.
thank
Yep.
you.
2, resolve to release the revised public transparency policy to the community seeking their feedback.
Revised, to release the revised public transparency policy to the community.
Yes, seeking their feedback. And
Yeah.
thank you. And 3, request a subsequent report to Council seeking formal approval of the public transparency policy once the community feedback period has closed.
Seeking formal approval of the public transparency policy
Once the community feedback period
has closed.
has closed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second that, Chair, with those amendments.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. This is an important document. I thank the team for the work that they've done. It is good to get the indication that we've had through our officers of support for the key elements that are in the draft policy, but it is important, I think, to note as well, Chair, that there have been some important additions which have been made since that consultation process. So I think it is appropriate on a document of this nature to seek further engagement from local community members, and we look forward to receiving any additional thoughts and contributions they may care to make before we again receive this and are in a position with their comments and feedback to formally make a decision in relation to it.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan?
No thanks, Chair. I think Administrator Zara summed that up perfectly.
So I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.5.3, review of council delegations to members of council staff. And again, tonight we've got the governance policies. If I could invite our Executive Manager to introduce this item.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek council-conferred delegation to members of council staff, allowing relevant positions to have the powers, duties and functions to perform their delegated roles. These particular delegations are updated twice yearly to address any changes to provisions under various legislation. At the same time, it enables council officers to review the correctness of officer titles, ensures powers are delegated at the correct officer level, ensures officers are delegated to the correct legislative provisions, and to remove certain legislative provisions that are no longer in force. So I recommend the officer's recommendation as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta. Administrators, do you have any questions?
No, Chair.
And I also have no questions. So do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.5.3?
Happy to move this, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan, and I'm very happy to second the officer recommendations. Administrator Duncan.
Not much, Chair, just to acknowledge that this is an administrative matter and governance matter, and thank you to the Executive Manager for putting this up this month.
Yes, thank you. I've also got nothing further to add. So I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.5.4, another one of our suite of revised governance policies, the draft governance rules. And again, Jacinta, if I can invite you to introduce this item.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek Council approval to commence community engagement in relation to the governance rules and the election period policy, which is a requirement under the Local Government Act 2020. As Council starts preparing for the General Council elections in 2024, and to acknowledge Council's continued focus on improvement, it is timely to review the election policy at the same time as the governance rules. The type of key amendments to both the governance rules and the election period policy include Council is to consider each agenda item on their merits and not move items en bloc. The reduction to speaking times against each of the agenda items, strengthening of the use of council resources during an election caretaker period, access to information and candidate information which will align with council's public transparency policy. At the completion of the community engagement, a further report taking into consideration the community feedback will be brought back to council for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item?
No questions, Chair.
No, and I also have no questions, but I'd be very happy to move the officer recommendation for item 5.5.4. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I just wanted to make a couple of comments in relation to these draft governance rules, and namely that I think that this is our fourth review of our governance rules since the appointment of administrators, and we welcome further public comment in relation to the draft governance rules and the election period policy. As clearly these documents really guide good governance going forward during the remainder of our term, but also importantly leading into the return of elected representation in October 2024. I think that these draft documents are incredibly comprehensive and incorporate, I believe, best practice governance approaches for local government. And I really want to thank our Executive Manager for the rigour in which she and the CEO and other members of the Executive Leadership team have reviewed and updated our previous rules. There's just one element of the new governance rules that are going to be out on public exhibition that I wanted to particularly note, because I have a very strong personal view that it's a very important requirement, and that is the requirement that Council needs to consider each agenda item and not move agenda items en bloc. And that really means that each item must be individually considered and given the required attention. And it also ensures that the outcome of each and every item of business on the agenda is really clear. So I really applaud the inclusion of that element within the draft governance rules. Would the seconder like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Chair.
Administrator Duncan? No. I'll therefore put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. I note that there are no notices of motion. Administrators, are there any items of urgent business?
None, Chair.
So if I could now ask Administrator Peter Duncan if she'd like to make an update to Council and members of the public in relation to any of her activities.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the 25th of July, with yourself and our colleague Administrator Zara, we conducted the CEO Employment Matters Advisory Committee meeting, and that was a very good meeting, I believe. So that's it from me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara.
Nothing to add to what Administrator Duncan has set out in her report, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, I omitted to ask whether there were any questions that you had in relation to Administrator Duncan's or...
Both there together, Chair, so no questions.
So just a very brief report from myself publicly, because you've already spoken about the Employment Matters Advisory Committee that we all attended. In addition, if I could just particularly note the Northern Councils Alliance, which is really the mayors and CEOs of all the northern group of councils, always really beneficial, and again, that collaborative approach to the way that we work. I was really fortunate to attend the Epping Services Hub, and that was for the formal celebration of the LG Pro Award for Excellence that we specifically noted at the last council meeting. So it was beautiful to be there in person with all of the member organisations to congratulate them and staff for the work that's occurred. And then with our CEO, and one of the directors, we were very fortunate to have an amazing site visit of La Trobe University and their vision for the future of the campus, which is in Bundoora, but obviously a really key academic institution for the city of Whittlesea as well, and that was really quite a wonderful opportunity, and we've picked up a number of partnership opportunities that we will be pursuing going forward. Happy to respond to any questions if there are any. So could I then ask the CEO to also provide an update publicly? Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. Last Monday, the City of Whittlesea, in partnership with the Hume Whittlesea Local Learning and Employment Network, hosted the Children and Families Career and Jobs Fair, and I was delighted to open that. It was a fantastic event with more than 35 exhibitors from educational institutions, local employers and support organisations on site here at PRAC to chat to the community about the employment opportunities and career pathways in early years and the health sectors. The fair included information presentations on a wide variety of topics, including school-based apprenticeships, the maternal and child health student and graduate program, and how to start your career in early childhood education, just to name a few. And we had a fabulous turnout with more than 120 people attending, and a big shout out to our team in organising that. Construction has recently started on the new softball training nets at Mill Park Recreation Reserve, which include 2 undercover training bays. This project, which was made possible with a $180,000 contribution by the State Government's Sport and Recreation Victoria, is scheduled to be completed later this year. The design process for the upgrade of Peter Hopper Lake in Mill Park has started, with site investigations underway, including environmental and geotechnical assessments. I'd like to thank those in our community who took the time to provide feedback during the recent consultation process. We have listened to that feedback and taken on board all of the valuable ideas and the constructive feedback that we received. The upgrade will restore the water quality at the lake and ensure that the Peter Hopper Lake can remain a place for the community and wildlife to enjoy in the years to come, with work expected on site to begin in early 2024. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Greg Robinson. Greg was a much-loved team member out at our Whittlesea depot, and he passed away following a period of illness. Greg served our community with passion, and I think it's fair to say took him to his colleagues with a great sense of humour. Prior to joining the City of Whittlesea as a member of our road crew, Greg also served the community working for Manningham City Council as well. I was honoured with some of our other staff and directors to attend Greg's memorial service a couple of weeks ago, and my thoughts are with his wife, family, friends and all of his colleagues and friends at the Whittlesea depot at this difficult time. Farley Greg Robinson. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Craig. And if we can also pass on our condolences on the passing of Greg to family, friends and staff members as well. And thank you for your comprehensive report. Are there any questions of the CEO?
None, Chair.
I do note that all of these verbal reports will be documented in the minutes. Administrators, I require a motion to now close the meeting to the public under section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 for the consideration of confidential items, item 9.5.1, CEO employment matters. Do I have a mover to close the meeting for consideration of confidential items?
Happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And do I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. And that brings us to the end of the open meeting, and therefore I declare the open meeting closed at 7:26 p.m. Thank you.